Now, there's something in your there's one problem for the bacteria, which is what? If it's in your stomach, what does it have to fight against?
Acid.
Acid, yes. All right. So it's a very acidic environment, and H. pylori by nature is not an acidophile, right? So it actually gets killed by acid, right? So in order to counteract that, what it produces is an enzyme called urease, which converts urea to ammonia. Now, if you think about ammonia, is ammonia an acid or a base? It's a base, okay? So it has a high pH. So that helps to neutralize the stomach acid. And so it uses that as a way to try to shield it from the acid by neutralizing it. And also it has flagella to make it move, and it moves down to an area to the mucus layer where it's protected. Because remember, your stomach cells, your stomach epithelial cells, are also sensitive to acid, but they secrete this mucus to protect it. The problem with H. pylori is that once it reaches the mucus layer, it starts to colonize it. Okay? And when it colonizes that layer, our body recognizes that bacteria is being foreign. And so it's going to try to destroy it. And in the process of trying to destroy those bacteria, right, it can cause inflammation, which can do damage to the mucus layer. And if you destroy the mucus layer, then you have the acid that can now be exposed to epithelial cells and break those cells down. Right, so that's where you get the destruction of the stomach lining, okay? And that's what causes the ulcer. Right? All right, so that's the damage that people with H. pylori does. Now, for the longest time, until a few decades ago, we thought that ulcers was caused by our lifestyle, like stress, right? That's a good example. But it turns out that a lot of these cases are actually caused by bacteria. And so this changed the way that we thought about how to treat ulcers. So now what we use are antibiotics, because antibiotics kill the bacteria. Okay? And then you also combine with other medications that have all been used to try to reduce the amount of acid. Right? Yes?
Is it found more in basic foods? Or, are there any sources that you can recall that are worse as far as, or foods that are worse as far as getting that?
I think it's usually human. I think it's human to human. I think it's oral. Yeah. So I don't think it's foodborne per se. All right. Any questions about this? All right, and then some common ones, just to make you aware of these, because a lot of cases are revolve around this. Now, one thing I should say is that if you think about when you had food poisoning, all right, a lot of times, right, it'll resolve itself. Right, you usually don't have to go to a doctor or go to a hospital unless it's severe cases. Okay, and so some of these are hard to get numbers on, like how many cases there are, because a lot of us don't need to go to a doctor to have this diagnosed. And so these are two examples of real common ones where there could be millions of cases of these per year, but we just don't know about them statistically because they don't get reported. All right, so one is Staph aureus, the other is Bacillus cereus. Just to give you some numbers about what happens. So this is transmitted by food, and it takes about 500,000 cells. Okay, 500,000 cells in order to get sick. So that's called the infective dose. As a lot of us know from food poisoning, it produces diarrhea and vomiting. It has a very short duration. Okay. Right. So again, if it has a short duration, it usually tells you that there's a toxin involved. Okay. So Staph aureus produces a toxin which causes this illness. And the because it's foodborne, all the things that we're supposed to be doing when we handle food come into play in terms of controlling it. So being able to store your food properly, keeping food hot or cold, depending on whether it has to be hot or cold. Hands are good. So hands are a very good way to spread it because Staph aureus lives on skin. And also cooking itself doesn't kill those enterotoxins. Right? So you may be able to kill the bacteria, but the toxins will still be there. All right, Bacillus cereus has a little bit different profile. It takes more cells to cause illness. Produces similar symptoms. One thing about Bacillus cereus is that it has a preference for being found on grains. So rice is a good example of where you can find Bacillus cereus. Okay, and so for example, steamed rice is a good way. If it's improperly cooked or improperly stored, that's a good way to spread Bacillus cereus. Okay. So if you have contaminated food and you reheat it, like when you reheat your rice, the toxin can still survive, will still be there, and you can get sick off that. Any questions about this? All right, what I want to do now is talk about, sort of switch gears and talk about hepatitis. Now hepatitis, now if it's hepatitis, what part of your body is being affected, or what organ in your body? Yeah, your liver, okay? However, this is presented in this particular chapter, so I'm going to just present it here. There's three forms we're going to talk about, A, B, and C, okay? Now, just to give you a little bit of overview, and we'll go to each one specifically. Hepatitis refers to inflammation of the liver. So you have these symptoms related to these liver-related symptoms: jaundice, fatigue, nausea, abdominal pain, loss of appetite, diarrhea. The three forms, however, have different. There's differences between the three forms of hepatitis. B and C can lead to liver damage, cirrhosis, and liver failure. So these are the more serious ones. There's a type A that we're going to learn is foodborne. A good source of information for hepatitis is actually from the CDC. So I just stuck this up here so you can find out more. We're going to talk about A, B, and C, but there's also some other ones. So there's D, and there's also E, which I'm not going to talk about. Hepatitis A, this is one that is foodborne. So it's spread by fecal contamination, and then that contamination gets into food and water. So where you hear about cases of hepatitis A are from restaurants, or like school cafeterias, another place where you hear about reports of this. Okay? Because if someone is infected with hepatitis, they can easily spread it through food handling. This is one example of hepatitis where we have different treatments that we can use. One is that there is a vaccine that's available, so you can prevent hepatitis A. Okay. There's also immune globulin for short-term protection. Right, so if you know you've been exposed to hepatitis A, you can actually get protection by getting immune globulin, right, getting antiserum. Right, so again, immune globulin refers to what? Antibodies, right? So you get protective antibodies. What they usually say is that if you get it within 2 weeks of exposure, okay, that immune globulin will protect you. So there was a few years ago, there was a hepatitis A outbreak. It was actually from the Elephant Bar, which is on Arden. Okay, and so public health officials, Sacramento County public health officials, were telling people you get your immune globulin, right? Unfortunately, it was pretty close to the 2-week period, but they said, okay, yeah, you have 2 weeks to get your shot, right, from your exposure. So again, sanitary habits is how we can control this. Now, a lot of us get this, so they say about a third of us have evidence of past infection. Also, this is the one type of hepatitis which doesn't infect you chronically. So if you get hepatitis A, right, it usually resolves itself, and then it doesn't stay with you. Okay. Now that's going to be in contrast to B and C, which are chronic. Right. So those viruses can stay with you, and we'll see that here. Any questions about this? So here's hepatitis B. This one is spread by blood. It can be spread by body fluids. All right. Well, how this gets spread? Sharing needles is a good way to spread it. It can be spread by unsafe sex practices. Cuts can spread it through blood. All right. Also can be spread from mother to baby during birth. This one has much more serious outcomes than hepatitis A. This can lead to cirrhosis of the liver. It can lead to liver cancer, liver failure. Right? So this is much more serious. So one thing about hepatitis B is that we do have a vaccine. So a lot of you may know about this already, or a lot of you may have had this already, because healthcare workers are supposed to get this vaccine. So that's one way to prevent getting hepatitis B. Also, safe sex practices. One thing to keep in mind about hepatitis B is that we don't have a cure. Okay, we have ways of controlling the virus, keep the numbers down, but we don't have a cure. Right? So we have to use antivirals to be able to control it. So one example is interferon that's used. Okay? Also, just one other property about this virus. So HIV, we hear more about HIV as being a dangerous virus. However, hepatitis B is a much more survivable virus than HIV. So this virus is 100 times more infectious, and it can actually survive longer on fomites than HIV. Right? So HIV can, like if you had HIV on your desk, it may be viable for only a few seconds. Okay? Whereas HBV, hepatitis B virus, can last for a week or so. So it's a lot different. All right. Any questions about that? And finally, there's hepatitis C. So this is the third one. This is the last one. This one is spread through blood and body fluids, so it's similar to hepatitis B. Where you hear about this is with tattoos. Okay, so the needles that are used in tattoos, if they're contaminated, it can spread hepatitis C. Also, it can be spread by illegal drug use, like injectables. It turns out that overall, transmission by sex is rare for transmitting hepatitis C. So that's different than hepatitis B, right? So this one is known for its ability to produce chronic infections. So there's about 3.5 million chronic infections in the United States, and this can lead, just like hepatitis B, to cirrhosis and liver failure. Okay? In fact, it's one of the more common reasons why there are liver transplants. It's kind of like the last-ditch effort to try to treat hepatitis C. Okay. This one has the fewest treatment options. There's no vaccine. Okay. There's no cure. Right. There are treatments that you can use, like interferon and ribavirin, to control the numbers, but this one we still don't have a vaccine for. Okay. So the major agent of change or controlling this is by changing risky behavior. All right. Any questions about that?